Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm your host Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have comedian Calum Brennan on the podcast. Hey Calum, how's it going today?
Hello, Sam. Thank you for having me, and it's going very well. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was we really enjoyed having you at Sunset Comedy the other week. It's about 2 or 3 weeks back now.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, 26th of November
Yeah,
was enjoyed it a lot.
yeah, good stuff. And I guess up front, as people might not know, you're a partially sighted comedian, or what's the preferred terminology these days?
Well, I mean, as far as general terminology, I think these days people do say severely sight impaired, but personally, I don't really care. I would say, yeah, registered blind and yeah, visually impaired is, which is, I prefer visually impaired in a way because it's that means when getting assistance at train stations, people refer to you as a VIP. So.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Indeed. Well, I mean, tell us about how you got into comedy. How did that all start?
Sure. I mean, as far as this, like getting into this, I wanted to do comedy for a while, and I was always intending to start properly when I finished university.
Uh-huh.
But I graduated in 2020.
Mm.
And I know online gigs were a thing, but
Mm.
for me personally, I didn't like the idea of especially starting to properly get into. I'd done the occasional open mic night while I was at uni, or
Oh,
even
really?
yeah, or before I was at uni, I did a couple of open mic nights in Hereford, where I went to the Royal National College for the Blind.
Ah.
That was where I first dabbled.
Mm.
So yeah, with that happening, I then waited, I guess, for a bit, and finally, for various reasons, didn't get around to it in 2021 and 2022, and then
Mm.
finally managed to start in October last year.
Great stuff.
And it's really there was the initial. So I'm based in Southampton,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, and got a few things around with open mic nights, but then trying to get other stuff. Things were already booked up as far as places, and that's
Mm.
how it goes. So then I was going a bit further afield
Mm.
to
Mm.
get some gigs. Like I went to Peterborough,
Right.
went to Wales,
Mm.
so because I just wanted to sort of get some, I guess, rack up some stage time and
Sure.
just continue. I didn't want to just be waiting around, and yeah, just had my last gig for this year was on the 21st of December,
Mm-hmm.
and now I guess onwards to 2025.
Great stuff. Yeah. Oh, well, that's really interesting to hear. And well, I'm kind of guess I'm keen to dig in the initial start. I guess you're saying that you did some open mics at university. I guess was it you'd seen stand up as a or heard stand up as a young person and kind of always was it always there that something you wanted to try out, or what gave you the initial impulse to actually start it?
Sure. As far as first time I ever watched stand-up comedy, it was uh, there was a Lee Evans show on the TV,
Oh yeah.
and that was my first sort of introduction. I think that was when I was about 12, 13 years old. It
Mm-mm.
was his XL tour, which is record the DVDs recorded in Cardiff from
Right.
2005. And I just used to like, I guess, just replicating what he was saying.
Mm-mm.
When talking to people, I just enjoyed, like, going through, his material. Always, found it amusing. I then got into, Michael McIntyre,
Oh yeah.
Russell Howard,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, like Mock the Week,
Yes.
and then Russell Howard's Good News. And then it was when I was 15 that, when talking to a friend of mine at the time, she said that I should be a stand-up comedian.
Uh,
And I guess that was the seed being planted. And, you know, I was there like, oh, that might be interesting. Because I mean, for that, up to that point, I'd always wanted to be a writer.
oh really?
So I guess in that sense, I've always had a creative part of me.
Mm-mm.
So, and yeah, it was, but I didn't like. I wasn't sure how I would handle talking in front of larger amounts of people.
Sure.
I don't I don't think at least especially at that point, I didn't think I was great talking in front of, one person, let alone that many.
Sure.
But it was then actually when I got my first guide dog. So I've had two. Currently, my recent one, my second was retired recently.
Oh
So
yeah.
I am back to being a cane user, but I am on the waiting list, hoping to
Right.
get another one. But with my first guide dog, see, I'd say it's not just the independence it helped with; it's also confidence.
Really. Yeah.
And so I was getting better with my social skills through him.
Mm.
But then also with sort of encouragement of a couple of my teaching assistants at the time,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to let people know what to do and what not to do. I suggested to the head teacher at my school, I was in sixth form at the time,
Mm.
that I do some assemblies where I talk to people
Mm.
about, you know, you know, how the guide dog gets trained, how I got him, what to do around
Wow.
him, and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the school as a whole was like 2,500 pupils.
Mm-hmm.
The assemblies were split, so I did four assemblies to 300 to 500 kids each,
Amazing. Yeah.
and that was sort of my way of, I guess, almost practicing for the potential of doing stand up because I would, chuck some jokes in as
Sure.
well
Sure.
whilst doing the talking. I then actually went to other schools in like my local towns
Uh-huh.
to also, you know, talk about guide dogs. So that was sort of the practice. And then it was when I was at the Royal National College for the Blind that, what was it they called them? They were called personal support officers.
Oh yeah.
So when I sort of mentioned it in passing, she just said, "Well, there is a place nearby we could, go to on this
Wow.
day if you want to, fancy it." And I waited a couple of months while I was mulling it over, and also, you know, thinking what would I actually talk about.
Right. Right.
Uh, and yeah, then that was in ended up going, and that was February 2015 was the first one I ever open mic night I did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right. And that was that you had that from 15. It's like, oh, someone people saying you're funny, you could be a stand-up. And then right in university there were yeah, it was there. And I mean a lot of people, it's a people are like they talk about it being a very scary thing. Um was I guess you always you were saying that there was a level of sort of intimidation about it, but you'd done these assembly things with the school, and so it made sense in your mind. It's like, oh yeah, I'll give this a try and see if I like it.
No, exactly. And I think, to be honest, with the assemblies, I got to the point that I was actually more comfortable talking in front of, 50, 100 plus people than I was talking in front of one,
Right.
if I'm honest, especially at that point in my life. And I think it's sort of when it was suggesting it, to me initially at 15, and then I sort of thought, well, I do enjoy making people laugh because, again, to, slightly risk going into maybe a bit of deeper stuff. It's, I was bullied as a kid for being blind.
Really? Right.
Yeah, so I think then in secondary school I sort of realized maybe through watching the comedy that if I make jokes about my sight, uh,
Mm-hmm.
people laugh, and it was sort of felt, a level of acceptance, I guess,
Yeah, I hear
not
that.
not being an outcast,
Absolutely.
which is how I certainly felt in primary school. So
Wow. Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, when did the visual impairment come in? Was that from birth, or was it sort of coming gradually?
no, no problem talking about it. It was actually I was born fully abled, and then it was the day after my fifth birthday that I went totally blind initially.
Oh wow.
Uh, I was rushed to hospital. They did a CAT scan on me, and it basically turned out I had a brain tumor
Oh
that
really?
had been developing for roughly 2 years,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
and basically the tumor caused an upbuild of fluid, which put
Mm,
pressure on the optic nerves. So,
mm,
to the point that they went essentially, bugger this. Um,
mm, mm.
and Fortunately, though, for me, the tumor was benign in the sense, so it wasn't cancerous.
Right.
This was in 2000, so it was at the time the second highest cause of death in children.
Mm,
So
mm,
I am very fortunate that the way I've put it to people is often I wasn't on death's doorstep, I was in death's house and they kicked me out.
right.
Because yeah, it was very like that's the thing as far as me then losing my sight. It was the alternative was, not being here at all. So,
Right.
in that sense, I could, you play with the cards you've been dealt.
Right.
And to set so the new like I said, I went totally blind initially, and the neurologists, neurosurgeons had told my parents at the time that they thought I would get some back.
Mm,
They didn't know how much and they didn't know when.
mm.
But it was within 6 months that I got the amount back that I have still had to this very day, which is so I essentially have none in the left eye, bit of
Uh-huh.
light perception, but that's not really much use.
Mm.
And then in the right eye, I can see like shapes, colors, but it's obviously very close up. It's like
Mm.
the way it's been put to me is it's 10% of the right eye is what works for me, and it's
Ah.
1/60, which sort of means so if someone fully sighted is a hang on, no, sorry, if I'm a meter away from something, it's the equivalent of someone fully sighted being 60 meters away
Right.
with
Right.
with how I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, and the tumor as well was able to be completely removed, which again, I'm fortunate in that sense because I know for some
Mm.
people that is not the case. So, I met
Yeah.
some while I was at the blind college who still had either the whole tumor in still in or a
Right.
part of it. So
Really.
yeah, so I am fortunate in that sense as well.
Thanks for sharing. It's an amazing, amazing story. Well, I must say, I'm very glad you're still with us. And I mean, wow, what an extraordinary experience to have gone through. I do have in my family, we've been affected by brain tumors.
Oh, yeah,
A few different people. So I know, yeah, that they can be, have a huge impact. Wow. Right.
certainly.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. Right, and so to age 5, you were effectively, just a normal in terms of your visual ability, and then
Yes,
that huge change. Yeah, well, and that's obviously very disturbing to hear about being bullied at school. I mean, I was bullied at school, and that's informs a lot of my personality, I think.
mm,
I was just I don't know that I had anything any quite so dramatic story, but I was just like a geeky, nerdy kid who didn't have very good social skills, and but yeah, any excuse, isn't it? Really, anything that makes you slightly different, they can give you a hard time, can't they?
yeah. I think because that's the thing as well I have to say to people is I don't think I initially appreciated my full difference as a kid. Like I remember being totally blind. I was then visually impaired, but it was yeah when the bullying started that it started to get a thing. And as you said as well, I'm very aware that I'm not the only one who has been bullied, as you just attested to. Like,
Mm,
but it is, and like you said, I think it does shape a lot of you know yeah your personality or whatever going forward. Because I know very much you know, especially throughout secondary school and even into my young adulthood, I've definitely had some level of insecurities that can definitely be attested to the experience I had in primary school
yeah,
for
yeah.
the 4 years of because it was year 2 to year 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I mentioned mine, not in any way to minimize your experience, but sort of to try
Not at
and,
all.
to connect. And but yeah,
Yeah.
and I could certainly imagine I mean, you're already struggling with, an impairment, and then on top of
Mm-hmm.
that, it's but I mean, it sounds like you've done what many of us have done. I mean, you've done it like in spades, which is sort of you actually use that kind of challenge and build on it and react to it. And I think we use humor to try and take control of the situation.
No, exactly. And I think to go back to the comedy journey element, that was something that also was helped for me by I've mentioned Lee Evans, Michael McIntyre, Russell Howard, and there's some others that I watched, but I think it
Mm,
was when I first on Live at the Apollo watched Adam Hills,
mm,
who if people aren't aware is Australian comedian with one leg, and
mm.
I think which is something he very openly talks about, and I think to me that was no pun intended eye opening as
Right.
far as a disabled person doing the comedy of obviously not the exact same disability.
No.
It was sort of that. I think yeah, it was a bit of I guess again helped with that seed continuing to grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and it's really interesting what you said as well about how you felt almost more comfortable speaking to 250, 300 people than you did with one person. I think that's a really interesting note, because I think there are many some very high level comedians who that they very much obviously enjoy being on stage, but have talked about struggling with one-on-one or smaller group interactions. Is Yeah, I'd love to hear more about how that manifests itself. Is it perhaps when there's lots of people, it's easier to read the room? Would you say?
I think I'm not 100% sure. Admittedly, I think it just comes from when it with one-on-one conversation or even like a few groups, it's harder to know when's the correct moment to talk if everyone
Mm,
is engaged. I think at least you'd hope in a situation where I'm on a stage talking about initially guide dogs and stuff and then doing comedy, I think I'm
mm.
just sort of there like, I will it feels like I know it's my time to talk,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yes.
And obviously there are, not everyone may be engaged for various reasons, whether they're not enjoying my comedy. Uh, you know,
Heaven forbid.
it's just which is, how it goes. Obviously, everything is
Sure.
subjective. But yeah, I think that's sort of what it comes from. It is worth pointing out that I mean, I still would say I am more comfortable being in front of a large group of people than, say, one or, two or three. But I definitely am better than I was.
Mm,
And
mm.
but I think it is more the fact that as well, like eye contact isn't as easy for me.
Sure.
Where when it's a massive group of people, I don't have to worry about making eye contact with every single one.
No, of
It's
course not.
fine. So where, you know, I tried, I try very much to do that with someone in a one-on-one situation
Mm,
as best I
mm.
can. I struggle with it still a bit because it's obviously where exactly am I looking? I
Sure.
did I did get help from teaching assistants when I was younger. Like
Mm.
we sort of realized, a way with the sight I have, it was like, oh, if you look at say a person's shoulder, then your eyes look more at them.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. Because it was actually very much when I was younger, actually, I would go to the point of I would just when the teacher was talking, I would just like put my head on the desk
Right.
or not look at them.
Mm,
And
mm.
it was quite as well in my child's brain, as it were. I was there like, well, I can't see you,
Right.
so
Right.
why do I need to look at you?
Mm,
I'm
mm,
listening.
mm. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
um, and I'd say 9 out of 10 always listening.
Mm,
But
mm, mm, mm.
it was, so it was that sort of thing. But then I know there was one particular teacher I had in like say in my year 7 and year 8 reports.
Mm,
One of his negatives for me was that I wasn't making eye contact,
mm, mm,
which I know some people do scoff at a bit.
mm, mm.
Uh, because it's like, obviously I was, blind. The teacher knew that,
Right.
but
Right.
I maybe incorrectly or not. A part of me is that I understand. I think because I actually got on with him. It has to be said, and I think
Mm.
again, along with my teaching assistants, I think they were just sort of there, like looking at people is very much a social expectation.
Right.
You know, it's when you meet new people, you know, and this, in any
Yeah.
situation, it is very
Yeah.
much an expectation that you look at the person while they're talking to you.
Mm.
So it's just, I think they were just trying to, prepare me for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it touches on so many interesting points there. Yeah. It's there are so many, as it were, non-verbal kind of visual cues that many people are relying upon, and there's a strong expectation. It reminds me a couple of things. One is, I mean, I spent a number of years working in Japan, and
Mm.
I was working in a big corporate to begin with, and I was quite shocked by the people that I'd sort of met. um, wouldn't make eye contact with me in the corridor, and
Okay.
I kind of was, I thought, have I offended these people somehow, or whatever? But just it's like a different culture where the culture of eye contact, it was just, it was a sort of a respect thing not to make eye contact. But
Okay.
and even having learnt that, I still found that I had this sort of emotional reaction to people who were, my colleagues who were not making eye contact with me in a situation in which I would expect to do. And I think it's, yeah, like that just I think underlines how it's almost like almost unconscious the expectations people have about eye contact and things like that are and how that can affect people's mood and their personal relationships.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, as you said that, I think it's more, maybe it's more of a Western thing, but definitely in Western society, visual cues is completely like very important. The
Yeah.
emphasis on them, and you know, and people rely on their sight massively, even shown to the point, there's been surveys of people asked, what sense would you, hate to lose the most, and
Mm,
it's
mm,
always sight
mm,
for
mm.
people, people would rather be deaf or what, and all that stuff, and it's one of those things. I don't take offense to it. I do understand it, for sure.
Yeah.
Where I do take offense is where I have literally had people come up to me and say, you're so brave. If I was in your position, I don't think I could live."
Oh gosh.
And it's like, thanks for that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, bit of a weird thing to say to someone in a club, but yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
so
Well, it makes sense that you, I mean, prefer the situation where you're not having to deal with these sort of people one to one, and you've got the bigger thing on the stage. I mean, I think it is something. It is interesting because people talk about how, oh, I could never do that. I could never stand up on the stage.
mm,
But there is something, about, as you were saying, it is your time to talk,
yeah.
and the expectation on you as the performer is very different from the expectation in a one to one or a small group setup. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Not, and that's not to say that I don't get nervous, of course, with there is the pressure of trying to make people laugh, but as far as actually getting up on the stage, or
Yeah.
behind the microphone, uh, you know, that is not, that doesn't fill me with pressure. That part of it.
No, no, sure, sure. I mean, it's for me because I suffer from crippling social overconfidence in that I just sort of, like ever since I turned 17, I've been in almost every social situation far too confident, like just ridiculously so. And people say, "Well, that's great, that's fantastic," and I actually know because it means I, talk over people and I, basically upset people and just say the wrong thing usually. And yeah, so I think I'm sort of slightly odd amongst some. I think there's still some number of comedians who are both quite gregarious on stage and off. But yeah, no, just an amazing story that you're sharing all the details with us. Maybe we'll. I mean, we might adapt this next question. But so one of the questions we often ask on the show is about how technology is affecting your life and your comedy. And you were saying in the sort of the pre-show, maybe not as much as other people, but yeah, I mean, like. And then this question can be interpreted in different ways. Like some people it's about like, oh, I'm not using the latest AI technology, or I'm not listening back to an audio recording of my show. But it can mean anything. Like technology is a very broad term. But so,
Yeah.
do you see the technology affecting your life and comedy in strong ways recently?
I mean, definitely my life, I think it's fair to say, has been massively affected by technology.
Yeah.
There's, see, with me logging in to this Zoom call to talk to you, or like just with that, my phone talks to me because, and
Mm,
that's very much the technology being, and that's, I have an iPhone. I've always been an iPhone user
hmm hmm
because they were like one of the first companies when it came to smartphones who provided it's called voiceover software as
Right.
far as Apple is
hmm
concerned.
hmm
Uh, that and it took a while before other companies caught up with that. I have since found out that a big reason for that is because Apple patented it, but
Ah, okay.
so they sort of gave themselves the leg up there. But
Mm,
I very much have never switched to Android or
mm.
Samsung or any of the others, and I don't think I ever will. I think I will
Yeah,
probably always stick to Apple in that sense because it's very much, I guess, what you're used to.
familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're familiar with exactly, and that's been a massive benefit to me. Of course, there's a talking software on computers called JAWS.
Mm-hmm.
like the shark.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and yes, and so I used that from a young age when I was taught how to touch type. So I mentioned I
Mm,
was losing my sight at 5. It was then when I was in year 2, so
mm,
6 or 7, that I was then taught how to braille, but also touch type. And
mm.
with that, the laptop had JAWS on it
Right.
because I would not be able to use a computer or laptop without any assistive software. I
No.
cannot, and in the same way on my phone, I can't, read a message regularly. I can, if I zoomed in on a message, I may be able to read it, but it's just a lot quicker to me
Right.
to yeah, just listen to it.
Sure. Sure.
And the only time really I try and use the zoom in on my phone, say, is an email address because the voiceover reads it as one word, which is
Uh,
because there's no spaces, so it's quite
mm.
so it can be quite tricky to
Oh yeah.
yeah, separate that. But so on that front, my life has certainly been affected there because you've also I haven't necessarily always used this stuff, but there's talking clocks, there's talking microwaves, there's talking scales,
Mm-hmm.
and so talking thermometers. So it's,
Mm.
there's all that stuff that I've definitely used throughout my life in various ways. In regards to the comedy side of things,
Mm. Mm.
as you mentioned, sort of touched on it in the pre-show, is you know it's it's my New Year's resolution really going into 2025 is I
Mm.
need to sort of create more of a social media presence because, like I
Sure.
say, I've used Facebook since I was 15,
Mm-hmm.
and I've sort of gone on that for my comedy. I very much use it for, we have all these various Facebook groups
Mm-hmm.
for different parts of the country of like available
Yeah.
gigs and stuff. So I do use that. So, messaging you to set up when I came up to Sunset Comedy
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
in November, so used Facebook Messenger and but like as far as like never had Instagram, as like, I've
Mm.
often said
Mm.
to people, it's because especially when I was a teenager, it was very much came across as a social media platform that very much is quite reliant on images.
Indeed.
Didn't
Yeah.
really appeal to a visually impaired
Sure.
teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, but is I think important to use, and I know people who are whether totally blind or visually
Mm-hmm.
impaired like myself who do use it. So I know it
Mm.
could be
Mm.
done. Of course, Twitter/X. I feel like I should try and use more.
Mm.
Uh, I'm aware some people are moving away from it, and I know is it Blue Sky right now.
Right.
So maybe I would look into that as well. And of course, TikTok
Yeah.
is a big one. A sort of so that yeah, it's very much. And I know there are going to be ways to do it. I know of people I could ask who are say visually impaired like myself who use
Mm.
it, and I probably should try and like organize sitting down with them and learning that way
Right.
because I know there's going to be some different uh you know uh adaptations I will need to make,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
very much that's where in some ways I would say people who are disabled are probably very much still the modern example of evolution as far as you adapt to I guess what people would consider your shortcomings, and you make it work. I found
Mm.
myself saying it a lot to people, and I think I even said it earlier. I think it's sort of because you play with the cards you've been dealt.
Right.
So
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Uh, yeah, it's well, so I mean, it's interesting because we just there was a another partially sighted comedian. We were trying to have them on a virtual reality comedy show last
oh
night,
yes.
actually. That's Thomas Tahoe from Belgium, and we sort of carefully worked out various bits of tech that would allow us to teleport him to the stage.
Mm.
Because he couldn't navigate the world, but we were confounded by Meta's app. It automatically mutes you when you come into the world, and the
Uh,
unmute button was not accessible to his like screen reading software or what have you. So frustratingly, the accessibility was not there, and he wasn't able to perform last night. So that was
Yeah, no, it does happen, unfortunately. Yeah, with some, not all programs are accessible at all. I think well, it's even like say when I joined our call here, it
mm,
is accessible to my voiceover to correct, but like you say, you come in to Zoom and it's at least in this particular situation, it had muted my conversation. Um,
mm, mm,
so again, fortunately, able to navigate it in this situation. But yeah, no, I
yeah,
can appreciate, and I think that's why, to be fair, because I know you talked about it in the group chat we were in for the gig in
mm,
November, and I did
mm,
think about it, but then yeah, the challenges of it, just I wasn't sure because I will hands up as well, like especially when I was younger, and I think there's
mm,
still a part of this that hasn't gone. I was a massive, technophobe.
mm, mm.
Very much, just yeah, very unsure of it. And to be honest, there is a part of me. I wouldn't call myself like it's a bit of a double edged sword because obviously AI is very helpful. But
Mm.
I do see things like there's the adverts for the recent is it Google program Gemini,
Yeah, Gemini. Yeah.
and that one does I don't know if to say it not freak me out, but I do I'm sort of there like ooh, so
Mm.
but again it is very helpful technology. There is no doubt there, and I know even with such things as potentially helping improve people's sight as something that it's even possible can be, or being considered possible to do down the line.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, well, it's interesting times on many fronts there with the technology. I mean, the other, and there's all sorts of different conversation paths we could go down, but the one
Mm.
I'm keen to understand is there an extent to which the technology, affects the creative process? So, for example, are you recording the audio of your sets and playing them back? Are you kind of storing your jokes in a database? Is there any way in which like, or are you kind of keeping it more, it's just you and your mind, and the technology is not really impacting the way you do your comedy?
In regards to recording sets, I probably again I don't record the sets maybe as much as I should. I think again that's because again I'm not the best with using on my phone. I know I
Uh,
need to, but I'm aware I need to probably get like like a tripod or stand for my phone and use it in do it more. But I have like say so then I've been getting recordings from some people have been other comedians have been kind enough
right.
to do it either with me asking or I've had a couple where they've done it without me asking and then they've gone,
Mm.
oh, I did this, do you want it? And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, obviously at your gig, you recorded for me, you sent it. I've had other gigs where they've provided a recording whether for a bit of money
Sure.
or not. And but as in regards to like writing my material, I very much use the Notes app on my iPhone,
Oh yeah.
and usually I dictate it into the phone,
Mm. Mm.
and then I will you know read it back to myself like with because it's touchscreen. As you touch each section, it reads out the bit you're touching,
Mm.
and then I memorize it that way.
Okay. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that you sort of, as you're having ideas for jokes, you'll record it into the phone, and then you'll play it back to
Yes.
yourself and sort of adjust them and tweak them and do things like that.
Yes, no, I have like various files. Like I've different routines written up for different shows, and then I have like a one that's just like I think that is called stand up ideas, and I just write down
Mm.
stuff in there. It's one of those ones that I've I'm sure a lot of comedians have this where a part of me feels like if I ever do you know pass away or have a accident or something, and then
Right.
people go into the notes on my phone, some of the things that is written in there is going to look so weird out of
Yeah, yeah,
context.
indeed. So I think yeah. There's maybe need some sort of special app that will delete all the things on our
Yeah,
device in order to for what is it, the plausible deniability. Yeah, and I'm just thinking about the recording. It's one of the things I have. You mentioned getting a tripod for your phone. One of the things I have done on occasion is I've just left my phone recording in my pocket when I'm on the stage. I mean that may and you can still get like a passable audio back.
yeah,
Again, I don't know, obviously potentially challenging for you at the moment of going on stage, to be able to switch on we're obviously challenged by the navigation process to the stage in the first place. So, trying to turn on a recording device at the same time can be tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that I do need to get more into the habit of doing. So, good boy,
Yeah.
down, down, down. Come on.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
Is
Yeah.
your guide
Shall
dog
I
is
show you?
always.
Shall I show you? You see him?
Oh, lovely. Hello there.
Yes.
Haha.
Good boy. Yeah.
That's great. Well, then that's
Down.
a nice segue into. I mean, I was going to
Sorry. Yeah.
modify this next question about like which people or indeed animals have had the biggest impact on your life and career.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think as far as animals, as I sort of count, my first guide dog was very impactful, and the dog here with me now is my, as I said, former. Now he is retired, but my second guide dog. But
Mm,
he has, of course, been arguably as far as the comedy journey, definitely more impactful than my first dog because, like I said, I started the main journey last year, so it
mm,
was in some ways unfortunate that I was doing more traveling with him as he was getting older.
mm,
But
mm,
he was very happy to do it. It's very much one of those things that I think the charity looked at it as mentally, and I've said it's like mentally he wasn't ready to retire in the sense of I think he would continue working if I took him out, but physically,
right,
he, especially in the last month or so of his working life, he it's like developing arthritis in two of his legs.
right.
So it is one of those things. But that, like I say, that's why I actually was not going to London as much
Mm,
in the
mm-hmm.
second half of this year.
Sure.
And in the case of agreeing to like organizing to come to you, I knew that he would be retired by then.
You're right.
Because I'd been told that, like, say, a date, it was said in March, April that it would be 6 months. So I knew it would be September, October time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, definitely on that front.
And if I
As
can
for,
just ask quickly, because
mhm.
forgive my ignorance, but so yeah, I hadn't really considered how for these dogs that they had a working period and then retire. How what's the age range that they're sort of allowed to work through usually?
Well, assuming nothing goes wrong before, I had to say in the case of my first dog, he was retired early. So
Mm.
he got retired at 5.
Okay.
And that was due to a heart condition that got discovered while he was rehabbing
Uh,
from a crucial ligament injury. So he
mm.
was at the Guide Dog Medical Centre in Leamington Spa. They
Wow.
just did their general checks on him while he was recovering after
Yeah.
his an operation on his leg, and yeah, they found irregularities with his heart, and
Oh dear.
they retired him on the spot. He did then live a good life,
Mm.
with my parents. Uh, but as for the so I got so it's normally 18 months to 2 years old as far as when they get matched with you.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, my first dog was 18 months, and Yulan, my second and most recent guide dog, was 2, and
Mm.
then he got retired. He was 10 this year,
Okay.
which is the norm. So I
Right.
guess
Okay.
so you get 8 to 9 years.
8, 9 years working life,
Yeah,
right? From
yeah,
a dog. Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and like I said, I'm just now on the waiting list, and it can take a. It's very rarely a quick process.
Sure.
I did practice with a guide dog a week after being on the waiting list. Unfortunately, we didn't match, and which is
Uh,
a shame. It almost felt like too good to be true for me to get a new guide dog
yeah.
that quickly.
Mm, mm.
And it turned out to be the case. So I am very much hoping to get one soon because I suppose as I demonstrated going from Southampton to London, I am able to move around okay with the cane.
Mm, mm.
But to me, a dog is another level with
Right.
um, how it improves the mobility, as far and then there is the companionship, of course. There is
Yeah.
that is a bonus for sure.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's really
Mm,
interesting because I mean, we've never really, we had cats when I was growing up and
mm,
occasionally had, right. I mean, I know people are, devoted to their dogs and their dogs are devoted to the people that they live with. And, yeah, I'm just interested there. I guess I say the difference between the cane and the dog is that yeah, I'm sort of trying to imagine it in my head. Is I guess is that going from um, like getting from a train onto the platform and vice versa. That the dog makes that much easier, does it? Or where's the real
I
difference?
would, I mean, I think in the case because the dog, I suppose it is. I know it sounds a bit of a joke, but it is generally true. It's like the dog's alive, so
Mm,
the
mm,
dog's got eyes.
mm,
The cane
mm.
doesn't have it, so I guess it is very much like where the cane might be. As you're walking along, you bump into something
Yes.
with the cane first. The dog just walks you around it.
Okay.
Um, and I
Yes.
know, I
Yes.
think recently they have brought out, I think they just call them shock absorbent canes. So it
Okay.
shouldn't be as much of an issue if you knock into something with it. But I
Right.
think for me, it's still like, again, dog just goes around it. I think also in my personal experience, I think people are more likely to move out of your way when you've got a dog than a cane.
Yeah. Right.
Because again, like you said, I think a lot of people just love dogs,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
which which can also lead to some awkward situations. I think more people than I would like, I think, don't actually know or care about the rules when it comes to like not touching the dog when he's working and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Um, or but I think so. I would say that is the main one. I mean, the joke I used to tell in the assemblies was that
Yeah.
the main advantage of having a dog is that you can talk to it and you don't look mental. Um,
Yes, because if you're talking to the cane, people are asking questions.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. That's I'd say it's an extraordinary journey, and I mean, it's wonderful to be able to have that connection with the animals. Yeah.
Yes, and I will say, like for in the case I am not one or the other. I do like cats as well, but I would say dogs are definitely way ahead for me, and I don't. You could definitely never have a guide cat. I don't.
Yeah, a
That
guy
definitely
cat would be well.
it definitely wouldn't work.
That could definitely be a whole line of comedy for you about the
Yes.
the future guide cat establishment. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm interested. It makes me think of another question which relates to. I mean, this you probably get this a lot, and so apologies if it's a tedious question. But
Oh,
one off they often talk about how if you are, for example, visually impaired, your other senses will be heightened. Um,
mm,
that I mean that's partly I think part of the cane there's the sound and there's the touch and so on and that sort of things that you can use. I mean, I think particularly I mean, I'm a terrible listener when it comes to, I think my life generally. I'm trying to get better. I think also, the best comedians are the ones who are really plugged into all of the sounds coming from the room and sort of that. Do you think that there's any kind of advantage that you get from your perhaps slightly more finely attuned hearing when you're in a comedy situation or other situations?
um, I'm not sure if it. I don't know. Does it pay? I mean, I guess it probably. I think it could work either way, couldn't it? As far as it's probably an advantage, as far as I do hear some people laugh who might be quieter than others.
Mm,
In the same
mm.
sense, if people are chatting, then I can hear that as well.
Right, and you could be discerning.
Like even if they're whispering. So I think it probably, like a lot of things, it has its positives and negatives.
Mm,
But
mm.
I definitely would say that, yeah, I think obviously, obviously had people whether ask me seriously or joking about it, my other senses aren't to say daredevil levels.
Right,
But I think it has been scientifically shown that when you lose one sense, your brain
right,
sort of puts more emphasis on the others.
sure.
So there is an element of sensitivity. That also for me could come, say, from I have had a late diagnosis of having ASD,
Okay.
autistic spectrum disorder. So
Uh-huh.
autism can also make
Indeed.
senses a bit more sensitive. So there is that. But I think I don't know if you remember with the set uh, the show that I was on, that I made the joke about it there, that actually with that of how much I rely on my other senses.
Mm, mm.
When I have a cold, I hate it because it does dull your smell, your hearing, and your taste, and
Yes, right.
it's
Indeed.
very much so. It's very much a case of, like, yeah, the I'd say hearing is definitely number one as far as, yeah, the one I rely on the most.
Mm, mm.
But yeah, like even like smell, I think I've unintentionally freaked out a few people when I've known it was them behind me by just by like sniffing the air.
Right.
I have had that happen a couple of times, uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's so yeah, but no, as far as I mean, it might make me. I think it probably helps me. Like you said, I think I've had I think complete opposite to what you were saying, as far as you think you're saying you need to improve it. listening in, especially when I was at school.
Uh-huh.
I think my TAs especially would often call me out on listening to other people's conversations in class.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I mean, 9 times out of 10, the reality was, I actually, and I think in some ways, I think they were sort of, they wanted to tell me off, but they were also kind of impressed because I would listen to other people's conversations while still listening to them.
Mm,
So I was
mhm.
sort of like doing, one ear on them, one ear on
Oh, you can
the
kind
other
of do
conversation.
a multitasking of like
That's what
follow multiple conversations.
that's
Interesting.
what I would do. Yeah, I think I will say I think it is something that I think I'm not as good as I once was, but it is
Mm,
something I do often. Yeah, do
interesting.
end up doing.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It's really, really interesting.
No, it's
And
no worries.
moving on to our next question is we asked the question, how do drugs, and of course, when we say drugs, this can mean, people say, oh, drugs, there's evil drugs. One of chemical, there's all sorts of chemicals which people, use both legally and illegally. But yeah, how do you find drugs, if at all, affect your perception of reality?
No, I think I mean I think my answer probably to this will be quite short. So I've never really dabbled in drugs, legal or not really, because even these days I don't say drink alcohol really.
Mm, mm,
I did at one point. I mentioned briefly about being, going clubbing.
mm, mm.
But yeah, no, I think the only drug I take at this point is very much hay fever, an allergy tablet
Ah, right. So you have to
every
make
day.
sure you don't get blocked up. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, that's well, yeah, because I only used to do it because I think it'll get a bit bad in the summer. But
Mm,
I often find I wake up in the morning quite blocked up.
mm, mm.
So, and obviously blow my nose a couple of times, which is probably a whole thing in itself because I've had many people, whether friends, family, girlfriend, say that when I blow my nose, it's like I'm calling the ships in. Uh, it's a very loud noise. So
Dangerous in a port town, I guess.
yes, exactly. Uh, yeah, I mean, considering I've grown up, I grew up in Weymouth, right on the coast. It's probably a
Right.
wonder that ships never came into our house. But
Yeah.
yeah, no. So I very much have found that a hay fever tablet after blowing my nose is better for me throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Indeed.
but yeah, no, it's but no, I think yeah. Other than that, yeah, I'm aware. I don't think other than maybe making a few jokes because I've even like given away some material maybe, but a joke I've made is that I never bothered with things like heroin and such because what am I going to hallucinate?
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Myself and I've given up alcohol, and even I've given up. I've tried to give up. What is it called? Like the painkillers and
Yeah.
all this, that, and the other. I mean, I had like a respiratory infection 2 weeks ago, and I woke up with oh extraordinary sinus pain, and I broke down and took some decongestants because I just I couldn't bear it. But that's the first time I've done that in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
generally these days trying to have no other clouding, distorting things in my system, and just the comedy is what gives me the high. I think there's a particular in particular. Um, you know, there's a state I think that I can occasionally get into where it's just sort of like a sort of a rolling creative state where you're just sort of riffing on a and just making up. And some people say you're totally bollocks, total bullshit, or what have you. But there's a kind of a sort of special state that I think you can get into when you kind of go off script sometimes. I
mm,
don't know to what extent that you're currently. Obviously, there's different schools of thought, aren't there, in terms of here is your polished material and you do exactly that versus doing a bit of crowd work, doing this, that, and the other. Um, somewhere in the middle of that there is you can get into some really interesting states but do you tend to do is it I mean you talked earlier about seeing yourself for sort of first foremost or thinking first off about being a writer and obviously you're
mhm.
now a talented performer um but yeah do you spend a lot of time honing the material and you want to get it just so and then deliver it just so or do you like sort of making it up in the moment? What's your preference?
On that, my preference is definitely writing it out and then memorizing it. But I'm not. And then I definitely don't consider myself an improviser.
Mm,
There have
mm,
been some moments that I might have improvised a line that either has come completely from scratch or is a pre-prepared line, say that maybe was written down, but I just hadn't included in the routine.
Right, or you
And
hadn't
then
planned to use it, but in the moment it seemed like, oh yes, I could use that here.
yeah, and then if it works, is there like, all right, then I'll write that into the routine now.
Mm,
So I think
mm,
that's the main one. But I would definitely agree with you on the like the adrenaline. I think you get from doing stand up is certainly yeah, well, it's one of those things, isn't it? I think there is so many stories of performers in general, not just stand up comedy,
mm,
comedians, whether they when they take a step down or even during, because of the adrenaline rush to then maintain that high. That's
mm.
where people have turned to drugs for sure.
Yeah.
But on the thing you mentioned of like taking like painkillers and stuff, like obviously when having a cold, you can imagine like I very much do turn to the cold and flu medication at that
Mm,
point to
mm, mm,
give me any some sort of relief. And I did go through a period of I used a lot of ibuprofen and paracetamol because I had
mm.
issues with my arms.
Okay.
Because I used to play goalball when I was at the Royal National College for the Blind.
Oh yeah.
It's a blind specific sport.
Uh-huh.
People may have watched it on the Paralympics, but it's like
Oh yeah.
um, right, and so playing that a lot, and I also did blind football, but goalball especially was very testing on the arms. So
Right.
I
Right.
would often, yeah, be taking ibuprofen when I was, yeah, with all the training and the
Sure.
tournaments I did.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering, and caffeine? You like an espresso, or you?
No, never. Not a fan, not really a hot drinker. Like either like tea
Ah,
or coffee, hot chocolate sometimes maybe. As but
mm,
I do very much drink say like fizzy drinks.
mm-hmm.
But I think I normally do go for the ones that are meant to have less caffeine, and that's not necessarily by choice. That's just generally what I prefer taste wise, like like the Pepsi Maxes, Coke
Okay.
Zeros,
Okay.
Dr Pepper Zero.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
but so I've never really found caffeine to be too effective. But then I guess I've never had like massive doses of caffeine like you would get in coffee. Like I don't
Mm,
think
mm.
it's as prominent in the fizzy drinks I'm having, say,
Yeah.
as it would be if I was having coffee on a regular basis.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I used to be very, very heavily into the coffee, and was another thing
Yeah.
I sort of cut out completely. I mean, I think just for I see a lot of these. I almost see that caffeine as a performance enhancing drug. I mean, similarly,
Yes.
somebody with the, I mean, if I look back, I think I would see myself using, well, I would be drinking, alcohol and caffeine and taking ibuprofen just in quantities, just to kind of to push my, the coffee to work harder, the alcohol to try and decompress faster, and then the painkillers to get over the hangovers faster. And it was just, I think it was all, all in the service of trying to do more with less. And I think that's ultimately, at least for me, it's a way to sort of run yourself into the ground. And so yeah, I would certainly say that if you have no predilection for caffeine, don't start it now. I don't think there's any particular benefit to be had from it. I say obviously offending many coffee drinkers, but
No, I've heard a lot of people say, and I know very much. Say my mum particularly, she very much has the rule that it has to be decaf coffee after I think after 11 in the morning.
yeah,
It's very
yeah,
much, and yes, I know. And but it is interesting because I know that like my girlfriend, if she's very struggling, yeah, like sometimes a coffee will be a thing. But
mm,
it's
mm,
it, no, it's I've always found it interesting. And it's funny, like I said, I've never been, and it's the same with alcohol, because I think people when
mm,
I tell people I don't drink either,
mm,
people think it's like a choice on like the health element. It's like no, I've just generally never liked the taste of coffee, never truly liked the taste of alcohol. Like so I did drink it a bit when I was younger, but a lot of the time it was often cocktails where the alcohol was very much
mm, mm, mm.
covered, or like a Coke and Malibu, where again the Coke
Sure,
is disguising the taste.
yes.
So like say like so I just yeah never liked the taste and never really went for either of them.
Yeah, and I think that's becoming increasingly common these days. I mean, back in the day, I mean, I'm an older gentleman. That we didn't have all the phones, the devices, and all this, that, and the other, and alcohol was the main source of entertainment, which wasn't particularly very good for our health or physical or mental. But I think the times have changed somewhat there. Yeah, yeah. Well, and so there's Well, this is a bit of a stretch, but of course, so the co-founder of our podcast, Joe Vaughan, he's very into the sort of psychedelics for helping people cope with trauma, and that's so there's, I mean, it might be seen as by some as sort of ridiculous, but there is the suggestion that very controlled low doses of mushrooms or psychedelics can be very helpful in helping people overcome PTSD, these kinds of things. I mean, I wonder, as regards your, the partially sided the situation with the tumor. I presume you may have been on drugs to sort of help the brain recover, or I mean, is there any sense in which the medical technology is advancing such that that might further affect your level of visual impairment?
I mean, as far as at the time, I imagine I was on stuff. I think, um, again, it's funny though, the time period I didn't really mention earlier. I don't actually have many memories from around the time itself.
Oh,
A
really?
lot of my information is through like my parents and stuff,
Mm,
like what
mm,
happened,
sure.
and the occasional nightmare, which I've come to realize since
Oh,
was based in reality.
mm,
Like when I was younger, like
sure,
nightmares. That is not any recently.
sure.
Um, but yeah, so but I know I would have been on uh, drugs at the time. But as far as like now, it's not because again, like I said, the tumor's not in my head, so
Mm, mm.
anymore. So there's no like
No need for
pain or
medication.
anything caused.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's never, and I was very much discharged when I was you know uh because it was like for the next decades they continued assessing me to make sure that nothing
Yeah.
grew back like tumor
Right.
wise, and
Yeah.
yeah, then I've never really had issues since then. So um and and again, like you said, like I know people who have lost their sight maybe later in life, have turned to like things like psychedelics and stuff. But yeah, I think for me it's never there's never been an appeal, to be honest.
No, no, and I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, that's a particularly Joe's thing. I mean, personally, yeah, I feel like comedy is the highest psychedelic. Really, I don't know that there's any need for
Yeah.
anything beyond that. If I'm honest, but yeah, I mean, I think there are. I mean, the I've been fascinated listening about the sort of the Neuralink stuff, where you followed that, where Elon Musk's company, and they've allowed, in that case it's a sort of a guy who's a paraplegic to control a computer with his mind.
Okay. I mean, I have heard of that before. I didn't. I'll admit I haven't necessarily fully been on top of everything with Musk, but no, it is interesting being able to do that, and I can imagine for you know certainly for someone like himself, the gentleman who was
Mm-mm.
paraplegic, I can imagine it would be a very interesting experience.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know how it is. I've even had like, 'cause we talk about improvements and stuff. I don't know on whether I would necessarily want my sight back or not. Like I
Really.
feel like it's not as easy as a. I think in reality you probably would come to the answer of I would, because
Mm,
again,
mm,
the reality is it would improve my life to some extent. But
mm, mm.
saying I think it's probably because I lost it so young that it's not as easy of a decision as it is, say, for a friend of mine who lost his
Oh
at
yeah.
17.
Aha.
So again, it's very much, because it's, I think there's like I said, I've got used to this, my sight loss, I've adapted and all that stuff.
Mm, mm.
And in reality, it probably wouldn't take that long, but there's the sort of thought of, I feel like to go from not being able to see very well to completely seeing again would be very overwhelming.
Sure,
Uh, but
sure.
again, like as I sort of touched on earlier with the technological advancements, I mean, I guess you wouldn't be surprised if you know eventually I would have the opportunity to be able to see again in some capacity, whether
Mm,
it's some sort of glasses or
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
you know something could be done to my optic nerves, because I know I've heard of, say, them doing things for like retina transplants, but
Right, right.
when people have asked me about that, I've said, well, technically, there's nothing wrong with my retinas.
Yeah,
It's the optic nerves that were affected.
yeah,
So,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's be interesting to see what the future brings. And thanks so much for sharing that about your thoughts on whether you would accept sight back or not. It's Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. Well, it's been wonderful. I've got a sort of a newish question that we could maybe wrap up on, which is what does it all mean? I mean, I sort of like I guess the old school way of asking is like, what's the meaning of life? I mean, I often feel like so many conversations these days are sort of not our one today, which has been absolutely fascinating, and thank you so much for sharing in such detail. But so much you're bumping into someone in the street, and it's just a conversation about the weather. And I've often toyed with the idea of just throwing into everyday conversation. How are you, and what does it mean? Why are we here? Do you have any thoughts or feelings on the bigger meanings of life, the universe, and everything?
I think, I mean, I guess it's one of the it's fascinating because I did actually I always enjoyed philosophy, so
Mm, mm,
it does very much. I'm not a religious man.
mm.
I will say I was brought up Catholic,
Okay.
um, but like, and I've actually been to the Catholic pilgrimage in France,
Right.
Lourdes.
Oh yeah.
I have actually been there.
Mm.
Drank holy water and all that stuff.
Oh.
Obviously, it didn't work. Uh, but but it was. But in the same, I say to people, I don't begrudge. This isn't me. Like, this isn't an anti-religious thing for me,
Mm.
though. Like, I mean, like my girlfriend, that she's religious, and
Oh yeah.
like, I've never had issue with people having the faith and stuff. Because I mean,
Mm.
and there's a part of
Mm.
me, I'd go as far as to say I even am envious of people being able to have that level of faith
Mm. Mm.
in something.
Mm.
But so for me, when it comes to the meaning, I think because I think of like there's the whole like determinist argument of
Mm-hmm.
where whether it's due to a god or even just particles from the Big Bang,
Right.
we are all what we do is out of our control, and there's
Mm.
no true free
No free
will.
will. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. But then even like that's the thing as well. Despite me say not being religious, as I said, I was brought up religious, and I think often stuff from that is enough to live your life by. Like I think for me, my ultimate thing is as far as the meaning is there, like just treat others how you want to be treated. You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
I mentioned Adam Hill's to steal a thing. He'd often say on the last leg. I feel like it does boil down to the whole like don't be a dick,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is where I think it's fair without getting too political, social, whatever. Just anything. It's like I think it's where the modern day has been difficult for a lot of people. When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to it, feels like people are often being asses to each other.
Right.
Sometimes online, it feels like.
Right. You think
I
that
think
you think that sometimes the kind of we're now more connected than we ever were, but sometimes people are being they're using that as an excuse to be a bit unpleasant.
sometimes I think that has happened. But again, to clarify though, with that, like I really annoyed that I can never remember who I heard say this,
Mm.
but a quote that I thought was very good for like talking about the internet was the advantage of the internet if it gives the advantage of the internet is that it gives everyone a voice.
Mm.
The disadvantage of the internet is that it gives everyone a voice.
Indeed. Indeed.
And I think that very much sums it up. And as far as because again, it's like
Mm.
I think it's just I may be rambling a bit here, so I apologize, but I
No
think
problem at all.
it is just a case of to me, it's just live the life you can. You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely I've of course I think like again like a lot of people, and that's not me to trivialize it. I think it's
Mm.
you know good to be aware of the fact that it's something a lot of people go through. But I've had depression and
Mm.
stuff like
Mm.
that. So I think it is very much a case of say for me, I am fortunate enough that say I'm finishing 2024, I think in a pretty good place as far as
Oh, good. Glad to hear that.
I mean with probably the exception of being my guide dog retiring recently, that is
Mm.
probably
Mm.
the biggest negative I've had this year.
Sure.
So it's and I think even when I was going through, say, spells of depression, I think that was always, I suppose, I guess, glimmer of hope that, at times was harder to grip onto. But is
Mm.
that I suppose was it me and stuff? Is that like it must just to at least truck along, have I don't even say like a good time, like
Mm,
because obviously not every day is going to be
no,
you know the highest of highs,
sure.
but just say like after we finish recording, probably tonight will just be sitting down with my dog next to me,
Mm,
watching TV or watching a
hmm.
film, and it's just sort of there, like, just you know, it's you know, it feels in that situation that it feels good to be alive, I guess.
Yeah, if you can enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I think that's. Don't know if that again
No, no,
may have rambled a bit there.
not at all. I would say not at all. No rambling whatsoever. I think a perfect answer to the question. And of course, all of the things that the questions are all just an opportunity to leap into interesting conversation. Yeah, I mean that's a lovely we could end right there. I'm tempted just to go back to the thing you were saying about the advantage and the disadvantage of the internet, and I think there is something about that when it sort of maybe connects a thread that we were talking about earlier, which is that the issue with your teacher at school saying he's not making eye contact or what have you is one of the things that I've noticed very strongly, particularly doing so much remote work as has been going on post COVID, or even I've been mainly remote working since 2010. Is I think there
Hello,
is oh hello I think
hello. Sorry, broke up there. Broke up there.
broke
Sorry.
up. That was probably God saying, "Sam, you're rambling. Let's wrap this up." But I was talking about something that's been big for me recently is the difference between communication over the wire versus communication in person. And I think there's an extent to which sometimes the like I think there's kind of almost like a what's the word a spectrum of communication that goes from like a full in person, you're in the same room, you're, sort of in the same physical space, then
Mm.
to something like we've got our virtual reality thing, which is a 3D space, but it's still slightly different. And then there's like a 2D space, like we've got on this Zoom call. And then there's, emails and text messages and, posting things on people's walls and on YouTube comments and what have you. And I think as you go down that spectrum, like your connection and your sort of, sense of empathy for the other person can gradually fade away. And so I think people will say things, in YouTube comments and so on, or even indeed an email that they wouldn't say directly to the person. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes the unkindness or the unpleasantness can come from that lack of kind of face to face physical shared space, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there's a big like I don't remember the name of it, but I know there's theories in say psychology of like, and it started with I think like a mob mentality of where you
Mm,
like you feel like people feel like they've become faceless. They are able to hide their identity, and I think
right.
that certainly is something that I think is very much able to be applied to the internet, and definitely with like you said, like YouTube comments, social media comments. It's like
Mm, mm,
I was saying,
mm,
it's like I'm a big wrestling fan.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I've watched a lot of interviews with wrestlers, and a lot of them, like sometimes when the interviewer brings up things of like, oh, does it bother you with all these comments and stuff? And
mm,
one thing a lot of the wrestlers have ended up mentioning is that, you know, no one's ever said it to me in person.
yeah.
When people come to me, they're all very nice and stuff.
Mm,
Could they be legitimate? Who knows?
mm,
But it's
mm,
it's that sort of thing of like in reality, yeah, would I think there is an argument to be made sometimes in the case of those comments, do those people actually think that, or are they just wanting a reaction? It's
yeah.
very again, it's very much feel like a deeper rabbit hole to go down. Um,
Indeed, and that's when things like you were saying before are like treat others as you'd like to be treated, or as I think John Watson says, be kind because everybody's fighting a hard battle. These
mm.
are the things that we should be living our lives by, rather than just trying to get a rise out of people online. There we go. Callum, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Thanks so much for being so generous with your time today. We'd love to have you back at sunset in the new year. Obviously we can look at calendars. Hope very possibly with your next seeing eye dog, if that's the right, if that's the right phrase.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, yeah, I would obviously love to return to Sunset Comedy. More. thank you for having me on here. And yeah, here's hoping when I do next meet up with you that yeah, we'll have a my new guide dog.
Oh, I look forward to it. Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. Remember, you can help support the show by going to patreon.com/comedians on, where any level of support will help you to help us to continue to produce the show. Please do follow us on Facebook, and we'll see you all again soon.